You're listening to The Riff, a podcast by North Point Church. There's a lot more to the Christian journey than what can be presented in a 30-minute time slot from a stage on Sunday morning. Our host and lead pastor, Jeremy Johnson, highlights the vision of North Point Church and the Christian journey through stories, interviews, and unfiltered faith ramblings. We hope the conversations will help you engage in how faith interacts with your life. I think we're ready. Let's go for it.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Riff. Purpose of The Riff is for us to be able to talk about different stories, ideas, vision of church, of what we're all about at North Point. And so really means a lot for us that you would listen. Today, we're going to be talking about the future of the church. Now, I can't predict a lot. I can't predict a lot of fantasy football scores. I can't predict a lot of stock market, nor can I predict what church is going to look like in the next 10 years. But in this episode, we sit down, we talk about what does the future of the church look like? How does this pandemic impact it? What are the important things in the future that we want to make sure that we hold tight to? So glad you're here, and thanks for letting us be with you on this journey called The Riff. Welcome to another episode of
The Riff.
You know what's interesting is, and we want to be humble.
For sure.
But you were sharing with me today some of the location of our listeners that we were able to see in some data. And is it safe to say we now have an international demand for the Riff?
I would say not a lot of people have said this, but I would say that we're sweeping the globe.
We started in Canada.
We
got more than one.
There's 2 listeners.
Yeah,
in
already
Canada.
2.
And then,
Side note, don't listen alone.
No, that's
Take it
right.
from our friends in Canada.
Yeah, and then we saw something that blew us away, honestly.
Well, honestly,
so
didn't surprise me.
No.
But
we want to say hello to all 9 of you in Belgium. Yeah.
I don't even know how to say it in Belgium, but I am going to learn. Greetings. The home of waffles does not surprise me. And we have, I think 7 in Germany, Tag wie geht's.
Yeah. It's a European thing that we're kind of, so I get it.
And we have 12 in America.
And 12.
I don't know. But hey, we're glad you're listening. Thanks for joining the Riff. And today we are talking about the future of the church?
Future of the church. Yep. A lot of questions coming up about what does church look like after COVID. I don't think we're after COVID right now.
No,
I think
but we
still feels pretty COVID-ish. But there's a lot of questions to that. A lot of things changed. And then also we're a multi-site church. So what does that mean in that realm? And we just launched a campus in Republic. So that's been going for a couple weeks.
Still going.
Still going. And so we got some questions on that. So we're going to walk through a couple of those. I'm going to hit you with a couple.
Do we need to take time for a sponsor real quick? A break?
Oh, yeah, if we had one.
Okay, so we can keep going.
But we can keep going.
Okay, let's just keep
now,
blazing
on
through.
A side note, if you want to sponsor the Riff, we've got openings.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you heard, but we're sweeping the globe.
We are sweeping the globe. So think about our international audience. And while you're thinking, we're going to go ahead and dive into this podcast.
All right. So first question that comes up for you is out of this, and I'm going to say coming out of COVID. I don't know what that means. It could be another 5-year process, right? But what's the biggest change that you've experienced as a pastor with the church and the community that calls church, right? When we talk about church, we're not talking about a building. We're talking about a people group. So what's the biggest challenge that you've seen in this process?
Yeah, and obviously COVID has impacted so many different industries. So not for a second do I feel like the church is unique in its challenge of trying to figure out what kind of impact COVID has had. But the church has not been immune to the impact of COVID. And so we've been talking a lot about what does that look like. Here's what I would say is if North Point, if a lot of people who have been part of North Point, some really focus on the weekend experience. And what we want to do is provide a great weekend experience. We don't want it to be a bad weekend experience. And so if that was all North Point was a place we attended to be a part of a church experience. COVID shut that down, obviously, for quite a while. And what we found is people were able to continue to live and be followers of Jesus without a church service that they were attending. And so for some, it changed a habit, it changed a rhythm, and it made us look as a church as we feel the people who have been able to really find a lot of value in specifically North Point post the beginning of COVID. Is that how we say it? Post the beginning of it?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we've returned gathering, what we found is a higher percentage of people who are joining us are engaged at some level, engaged in community, engaged in serving, engaged in the mission of bringing practical help and hope outside the walls. So while that's always been a part of North Point, I think it's one of those COVID is provide an opportunity for us to say, okay, what is North Point all about? North Point is a place, it's a safe place for people to find and follow Jesus. North Point is a place where we want to give back outside these walls in ways that make sense. We don't want to give people an earful. We want to give them an eyeful, right? Like to represent, here's what Jesus would do. We believe as we look at scripture and now we try and take next steps, here's what it looks like in the lives of the Springfield School District. How can we partner with them? Here's what it looks like in the lives of people who live maybe in Zone 1, which would be considered underserved. Here's what it looks like. And we got to think about that in Nixon, Republic, and wherever we might be is how do we serve? So it hasn't really changed why we do. So I don't know that it's changed so much. It's allowed us to really see the value. Even though we love the weekend gatherings, the value is way more than just a weekend gathering. Because you can add a weekend gathering, you can take it away. That's not the biggest part of what we do. It's how do we represent Jesus in our community? I think the weekend gathering is helpful. I think it's inspiring. I think it's a great place for people to connect and experience Jesus. But the other elements of having connection, serving, arrows out, getting outside of our walls, that must continue whether we gathered or not.
What's the biggest change we have to make as a church? Because if we walk out of this and it all looks the same as it did 4 years ago, that's not a great model without COVID, right?
Right.
I mean, times change, culture changes. So what's the biggest change that you see coming?
I would say that the biggest focus coming out, whether that's a change or not, probably a recommitment to a focus is let's be a group of people who are engaged in mission. That means we are doing whatever it takes to bring help and hope to the community that we live in. Let's focus on that. So if that means from a staff perspective, some of the metrics that we look at aren't going to be as important as maybe they had become. Meaning like how many people gather on a weekend. I think it's important because it shows if people are trusting us to be a safe place. At the same time, that's not what means the mission is successful. Is we realize we can have 4 times as many people gather as our highest in our history, but still not accomplish the mission. What we have to do is accomplish the mission.
You said something at all staff. We do all staff meetings once a month. I'm still thinking about it.
Okay.
And you said it's about the people, right?
Yep.
Which we're all like, of course it is. And then you said, because we can get into a situation where we're looking at a sheet and we're saying, oh man, 500 strangers weren't here this weekend.
Right.
I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah. So for me, I hope that changes. Like that's the piece for me. Like we talk about mega churches, and if you're listening to this, a mega church is defined anything over 2,000, right?
Right.
Which we would be considered.
Yeah.
Maybe not right now. I don't know. But, I don't know 2,000 people. I don't know the people that go to North Point. So it's like super convicting when you said that. So walk through that whole idea of a church like North Point or a large church can get really focused on numbers. And for good reasons, right? Like there are good reasons that we're taking these records and looking through them and walking through graphs and charts and all this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
But that's not really the goal.
Right.
That's not the point.
The goal is not to be a mega church. The goal is to have a mega vision, right? Big difference. And North Point started way before I was here with a mega vision to be a safe place on the North Point of Springfield, hence the name, right? And so as Pastor Tommy and a whole bunch of bold people from James River launched this dream to have a mega vision for people who in the Bible Belt have said no to church, that maybe they'd say yes to Jesus if it looked a little different. And that mega vision turned into a mega church because it's a great vision, because people were wanting to say yes to Jesus. They had said no to culture or no to experiences, good, better, ugly. But this mega vision turned into mega church. But now the challenge is, and this, not that anyone would have decided to do this, or I don't even know if this was the result, but there's some attributes that somewhere along the line, even leading up to COVID, is that mega vision isn't as tangible as a mega church. So we can tell you every week. I could tell you, we were over 3,000 January, February going into COVID, and that's a mega church. But the mega vision wasn't to be mega church. And when you have a mega pandemic that comes up that impacts your mega church, then you really have to question your mega vision. And so really, when I say that with staff, is the last thing we want to do is look at a number and say, wow, we're missing 1,000 people. We have no idea who they are, because that would look at us and say, well, then what was that, right? If we don't know who someone is, all we know is there's a different number. That's not inspiring. That's not the vision. Let's be a place that cares for people. Not that people weren't cared for, but if you're not engaged, if we're not engaging, if we're not coming alongside of people, man, we had people during this season that they had a lot of loss. They lost family members, and we didn't even know. I mean, it's not like a bat signal goes up and that we don't know, because if we're not connected with them, we can't have community with them. If we don't have community with them, we can't be the church with them. And so what we realize is we weren't a church of 3,200 people. We were a crowd of 3,200 people. And that has nothing to do with our vision. Our vision is to be a church that is providing help and hope to our community. And we need to provide practical help. We need to get outside these walls. That is our mega vision. And if we end up continuing to be a mega church, we need to have a mega focus that we don't allow the mega church to replace the mega vision. That we have to say, okay, if you're showing up on the weekends, that's awesome. We love it. How can we help engage you in the vision? How can we help come alongside of you? How can we give you resources during the week? How can we help you grow on your journey with Jesus and on your reflection of Jesus throughout the week? We have to do that. And honestly, if I'm God, and I know I'm not, but if I were thinking about this from God's perspective, why would I want a whole bunch more people showing up at a church than what you can connect with? That's not helpful. So I just want to make sure what changes, is we need to be people who are connected, are caring. And I know a lot of people just want to blend in, hang out, and be at a safe place for them. Is I don't want anyone to know me right now. I want to absorb a service, and we don't want to get weird and eliminate that opportunity. But we want to put within arm's reach of any desire to get connected and to get engaged. I think that's going to be a renewed focus coming out of this.
That's good. Something that hasn't changed is we're still multi-site.
Yeah.
So we launched another campus during this season.
Yeah, launched 2. Dream Center.
Dream Center was launched right at the beginning of
it's brilliant.
of COVID. Yeah, it was. You're welcome, Andy Thornton.
It makes sense, though, if you don't think of mega church, you think of mega vision, because what's the vision? During a time where people needed care and community the most, it just makes sense.
100%.
Right? And so our Dream Center team, our Dream Center community, I'm certainly thrilled that we did that. But we didn't do that because of a church growth. We did that because of a church vision, right? Mm-hmm. Church growth is overrated. But church vision is underutilized. But so then we just recently launched Republic, and so excited about that. So yeah, multi-site. So, now with multi-site, the big question is why? Why would we do multi-site? And it's, if we let's pick on Republic for a second, is if you're a raving fan of North Point's vision and you live in Republic, there's a chance you're going to come often to North Point because you're engaged, you're connected, you're committed to North Point. But if your neighbor or the person you work with who lives in Republic is not a raving fan of North Point, why in the world are you going to, one, come to church? And two, if you do decide to cross that line, why are you going to drive 25 minutes to one of our campuses? Closest campuses would be Nixa and Springfield campus. That's still a 25-minute drive. And so we have eliminated the option for our target audience to be even able to have a safe place to find and follow Jesus if they're in Republic. And so multi-site, the beauty is to be able to put within give people a shot in a community, a better shot to be able to experience Jesus. It's easier to show up at a church and find community if there is one in your community. And that's not realistic. We can't do that in every place, 25 minutes. But we got to think, okay, if it's more than 20 minutes drive, it's probably hard for people as a general rule to check out North Point.
I also think that something within the future of just church as a whole, I do think that the smaller church setting is going to be a more helpful church setting. So, meaning more campuses are going to be helpful if we're going to be a church.
And why what are some of the values you think a small church can be able to flex?
One of the things I think that we've seen, I specifically think of the Dream Center campus.
Right.
And Andy, that the job that team's doing there, you walk onto that place and you know that Andy knows everybody by name.
Right.
You know that he knows their story, what they're going through, and he's walking through life. He and Sarah are walking life through with them. So it's just an amazing piece. And you walk on a Nixa campus, you walk on a Springfield campus, you walk onto the Republic campus. If you're to put all of those together, it's easy to have that long sheet of strangers. Right. So it gives a better opportunity to know names. It gives a better opportunity to know stories. So that's one of the things that I've loved seeing. I've loved seeing that. Now, one of the things that has gotten my mind interesting is you keep saying Joplin. So
on accident.
Now, listen, I just want to pick at this a little bit, right? Because there's something there, right? Okay. If we're going to go to like Freudian psychology, which I'm not because I don't know. I just know that word, so it made me sound like intelligent.
Psychology or Freudian, because both of them work.
But in a message, you had said Joplin in one of the podcasts. If you listen to the Republic podcast, you say Joplin.
Wow.
And you're just kind of like joking, making, what is that? What is that? Because if you don't know, if you're a listener, there was a Joplin campus. There was a Sunshine campus, which are no longer campuses. There's still people from those around, but they're no longer locations.
Right.
Walk through that.
Okay. Well, so right now we have 4 campuses, but there's 2 other campuses that have at one point been, part of North Point. The Sunshine campus, that's something that when I moved here, we were in a lease at the Sunshine facility. We loved the Sunshine campus. It's southeast part of Springfield, that's actually where I live, where my girls were at Glendale High School. So we'd go to the PTA meetings or we'd go to parents' nights, and there'd be hundreds of North Point or hundreds of parents there that all lived within about a 10-minute drive of a North Point campus. Loved it. The lease was not a win for us. And so I think we had 3 years or 4 years left in the lease when I came here. And so we started working on that lease. We wanted the location, loved the idea. There's a lot of people down there. Springfield, Southeast area had a great campus. Troy and Lacey Hartman had started with that campus there. And, but when we got to the end of the lease, we could not agree on terms. And so the price of the lease compared to how many times would have to fill that building in a weekend to be able to pay for that lease, it just did not work, wasn't in the cards. And so for me, that wasn't like this sense of, oh man, what happened to the campus? It's very logical. Like to me, right, coming coming into it, I knew, hey, this lease isn't going to work long-term. And so when we get to the point of renewing, we got to figure it out for this to be a long-term deal. And when we couldn't get to an agreement, it makes sense. It's a bummer. It makes sense, but it wasn't in the best interest of North Point to extend that lease with the terms that were offered for another season. So that's a bummer, but we have not parked the idea of a campus in the Southeast Springfield area. But for that season, it didn't make sense. Then Joplin, we launched Joplin, a spot where, we didn't have a lot of financial margin. It was a miracle that we were given the Joplin facility. And Joplin had been something that we had a dream of. Matter of fact, if you've been coming to North Point a long time, I had talked about napkin dreams and had everyone, a couple of different times I've done this, everyone write your dream on a napkin. And my napkin dream was the Joplin campus, that one day we'd have a Joplin campus. And we prayed about it. I had taken a leadership team over, some staff over. We had prayed about it and just felt like this is like what we feel like a great God connection to launch a campus in Joplin. And then when someone gave us the campus, a building, another church, we scrapped all the money we had, which sounds more than it was. Okay, we didn't have a lot of money. And we remodeled a little bit the Joplin campus. We had a great campus pastor, Tyler Kent, was on our team at the Nixa campus, and he was ready to launch this thing. And we launched. And it was good. It was a great launch. We had a great first year of the Joplin campus. And then Tyler had shifted. He had an opportunity, at a different church on the East Coast that, man, just made a lot of sense to them and their journey at the time. And when Tyler left, here's what we realized right away. We knew we didn't have a deep bench. We didn't have a deep bench at any of our campuses at the time as far as staff. We didn't have a lot of people who are saying, hey, I'm ready right now. And at Joplin specifically, it was brand new staff and brand new into even a church ministry. No one on the team was ready to lead that charge. And also what we found is a lot of North Pointers helped launch the Joplin campus by saying, hey, we'll help prepare it, we'll help serve, we'll drive 70 miles and we'll serve. And they did that for a couple of months, but after we had the campus pastor transition and it took us a long time to find who's next, we didn't have a lot of North Pointers there who understood the vision, the DNA. And quickly, we lost momentum there, and we were never able to salvage momentum. We were further away from it than is ideal for a campus. We overshot our influence. We didn't have a lot of influence that we had hoped we would have had, and we didn't have a deep enough bench to be able to send reinforcements staff-wise, nor did we have North Pointers with boots on the ground who lived there. And because we had a gap of trying to find different campus pastor for that, we lost momentum. It was a challenging spot for any campus pastor to jump into, and we're thankful that God did, and we gave it the best we could. And when that didn't work, we had another transition. We did the same thing. And but bottom line is, when we had lost momentum after the year, we just never got it back. And so then it just did not make sense to keep doing this without then the boots on the ground, the DNA, and the financial margin to be able to go forward. And so we ended up closing the campus. Several months after that, we ended up we never put a for sale sign on the campus. Someone approached us and asked to inquire about buying the building. And so when we did that, we were able to be a blessing to those who gave it to us, the building, and bless them with a gift out of that. And then we were able to use the remainder portion and put it down towards the Nixa property. So it kind of closed the chapter for Joplin. Great things came out of it, but I don't know that it closed the book for Joplin because it's still a dream. I asked myself, what was that about? And now here's the deal. Like when I was in Seattle, we launched campuses a lot, and you're not every campus is going to survive, right? But you want about 80% of them to survive. So if we were to launch 10 campuses tomorrow and 8 of them survived after a couple of years, we're like, that's pretty good, right? But when we launch them one at a time, we want that one to survive, right? And obviously but I still feel like this dream of, man, Is there room in Joplin to provide a place for people who are unchurched and unconnected? Absolutely. Did we do everything we could or we knew to do? Yes. But right now, why is Republic different? Because Republic, we have hundreds of North Pointers who live in Republic, boots on the ground. We're in a different world as a church. Whether it was staff development, we have staff who are ready to launch. And with March coming in, it's a no-brainer, right? We had financial margin because of the generosity of North Point. It's a different world than it was 4 years ago for North Point. And so going into Republic is a no-brainer. Now, will we go to Joplin one day? I hope so. Will we go to Bolivar one day? I hope so. Will we go to Southeast Springfield one day? I hope so. Our vision is to be a multi-site church, not because I want to have my face on a video screen. And we might not always be a video venue. That's not our vision. Our mega vision is to put pockets of safe places for people to experience Jesus. During this weird time of human history, the internet seems to be a great tool. Being able to produce one experience and broadcast it to 4 or 6 or 8 locations seems to work. 3 years from now, there might be a better tool. So we're not committed to video venue. We're not committed to multi-site. We're committed to being a vision that's a safe place for people to find and follow Jesus and getting outside the walls of our gathering. And if multi-site's a tool, we'll keep using that like crazy.
It's good. I have a theory.
Give us a theory. Yeah.
You do?
Is it about multi-sites or is it about politics?
It's about you.
It's about me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that cool? Is that all right?
Now I'm nervous, but yeah.
I think you said Joplin because without it, all of this wouldn't be happening. I don't think Republic is here. I don't think Dream Center is here without that Joplin experience. So when you talk about napkin dreams, and I've wrestled with this a lot because I've written some napkin dreams out, right?
Okay.
I think there's more to it. I think there's more to the napkin dream than just the napkin dream. I think there's a much bigger perspective to where the napkin dream that you write down, you draw a picture of Brock, you draw a picture of Joplin. It's a napkin dream.
Right.
And we might be in Joplin in 5 years. We might be there next week. I don't know. But there's something larger because there's a Brock in Republic.
Right.
There's a Brock at the DC.
Right.
Right? Like there's so many pieces to that to where we can look at that as a piece that didn't work. And it was up. Yeah, that's a failure. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, so I think it's a failure. But I don't like failing, right? You're the same way. So I don't know. To me, when you said that, I'm like, it's because it's a win. Like, honestly, like people's lives are going to be changed because of the people that gave to Joplin.
Right.
Because of the people that drove to Joplin, people's lives are going to be changed in Republic, at the Dream Center, at the next campus. So you saying that is not weird to me. Yeah. I know everybody was like, oh, stop saying it. But I'm like, you can keep saying it. You keep saying it, man. Like, I get it. So
it's not awkward in the sense of like here's what's important to me when I think of Joplin is we had to go forward with Joplin. We weren't wrong on going forward. We're wrong on thinking we could control the results. Okay. Let's think of all the churches that Paul planted. Okay. How many of them are thriving today? Now, they probably had a longer time frame than some of ours. But bottom line is this, is we do not control the results. We control our obedience, period. And so with what we knew, with the generosity in front of us, with the opportunity that God provided, we had to say yes. And my biggest fear of when it was the right thing for the vision of North Point to go. And then when we ended up closing, it was the right thing for North Point's continued vision to close. And God provided even through all of those. Now, could we have done things different? Could we have thought through it? Yes. Do we want to milk the learnings, the failure? Yes, 100%. But at the same time, I get nervous because I know it's North Pointers who invested. It's North Pointers who invested in Joplin. Mm-hmm. And while I believe that was never in vain, even what happened in Joplin, the baptism that happened in Joplin and some perspective shifts that happened in Joplin is we don't need, God could answer people's prayers through other churches in that community. It doesn't always need to be through us, and that's fine. And there's some thriving churches in Joplin, right? We wanted to be one of them. And for just a short season we were. But here's what's important to me is I wanted North Pointers to know, listen, what you did was not in vain. What you did didn't look like what we thought it was going to land. But bottom line is, a lot of what we see now, we're excited about now, we have the opportunity to do because of the events of Joplin. And next time God says go, we have to. We have to go. Sometimes it'll work out the way we want to and better than. Sometimes it won't. That's all right. Our job, and we have to model, is go when God puts it on our heart. And North Point, here's what we want to be. We are committed. Let's be the type of church that we're not so gripped to the, we talk about this, is we don't marry the model, okay? You date a model, but you don't marry the model. We talk about that in staff, right? Like you don't marry the model of how you do things. You marry the vision. You date the model, marry the vision. And so we're not married to video venue or multi-site or 62-minute messages unless I get carried away and it's 71-minute messages or whatever our service is. But what we're married to is the vision of a safe place for people to find and follow Jesus. So with that, let's be creative. Let's be bold. Let's have financial margin so that when God puts something on the hearts of North Point, we can say, let's be opportunistic. Let's be, there are a lot more places where I think there could be a campus that if we had the financial margin, we had the team ready to go, and we had boots on the ground of North Pointers who serve and create that experience, that's all that prevents us from going forward. And what excites me is we have, and we go back to our previous conversation in this episode, is that's why it's important to be engaged in a vision. It doesn't matter how many people show up at a location. How many people are engaged in the vision and can help us introduce Jesus to other people in their neighborhoods and in future neighborhoods? And what would that look like? Like, what does that look like the next 5 years? Like, how many campuses? We don't have a goal of like 5 campuses by 2025. That's not, who knows? We're not in control of that. But as many as are needed, and let's be positioned. I don't want to be the reason why we don't go forward. I don't want to be the reason why we're financially we don't have the margin to go forward, or we don't have the team developed. So every week when we're serving, it's not to put on this service. It's to create a safe place and build the muscles so that we can do it not only this weekend, but next weekend and anywhere. Every week I invest financially. It's not so that we can pay the light bill this week. It is, God, take what I'm giving, and would you let this be a lab for innovation and opportunities, and multiply this gift. Every time we're talking with staff or new staff or people who are interested in being on a team in that capacity, it's like, it's not about, can you get really good at your role right now? It's, what is your dream? Could you mobilize an army in a new community of people who want to help create an experience for others to find and follow Jesus? And when we have that, and then we listen to people, they're like, man, we're driving 25 minutes to church, right? We're driving 25 minutes to church. What if we had a campus here? So whether that's Southeast Springfield, whether that's Bolivar, whether that's Joplin, what are the questions? And we talked about this, and we're just going to go just a little bit longer on this episode. Yeah. What are the questions that we want to answer before we're ready to go?
I think one of the questions that we could walk through probably is, do all the campuses need to look the same, right? Springfield's the broadcast campus. So a question might be, is the goal of multi-site to create carbon copies and become a Starbucks?
Right.
By the way, I love Starbucks. I'm fine with Starbucks.
No, absolutely.
But I kind of like local coffee shops a little more. But I love Starbucks. I'm just saying that.
Really?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I like the feel of it. I know.
Yeah. No, I mean, here's what I like about Starbucks. It's predictable, right?
Have you been to Travelers though? It's good.
Travelers is great. I actually choose Boomertown. Is my favorite of the Travelers locations. But here's what I think is important is, you think of franchise model. Okay, are we a franchise? Are we just a tribe? Yes, is we want to control the predictable experience. So that's important. So we don't need it to look like every campus. We don't have we don't have the money or the priority that it has to be when you turn left, you're going to see this. And if people had unlimited money and it was Best Buy and like every Best Buy, where the men's bathroom is, that's cool. Okay. That's not our biggest priority is, can we create a predictable experience where people can have a safe place to find and follow Jesus?
Yeah.
I do think there are some, and this will change all the time. And one of the roles that you play is, what are the controllable predictables that we want at every campus, whether it's Kid Point, whether it's a lobby experience, whether it is, the adult experience. So not every campus needs to look like the broadcast campus. Every campus needs to be incredibly committed to the vision of creating a safe place to find and follow Jesus. Now, there are some things that we do as an organization that is just part of what we do that are best practices. And we don't want to reinvent at the speed and the experience of every new staff member for the next 20 years. Okay, so we're going to have best practices that are always on the chopping block. Whether it's groups, whether it's giving back, it might look totally different. Even some elements of Kid Point or student experience, like are we in a community that it's really easy in this community? It's a one high school type of community and everyone could show up on a Wednesday night for students? Or are we in a community where this campus tends to be a regional campus and a Wednesday night doesn't work as well as a Sunday morning? So there's things that we're going to look at. There's different culture. Not every like if you think the Dream Center and Nixa and Springfield and Republic all have the same culture, we're just wrong, right? So one of your roles and tensions is always to say, okay, what are the controllables? What are the things that we allow campuses to just express differently? And we'll continue to evaluate that.
Good. Good.
But one of the things, let's hit this, is some people might be saying, okay, what does it take to launch campus? Because there are people who do make a drive. And they're saying, man, I wish we had a North Point in our campus. We get that all the time.
Well, Belgium.
Okay.
Yeah. I know. I get it. I know where you're going. I know where you're going with this.
What are the things that we need for a campus? And I don't know if you remember, we walked through this.
Yeah.
Okay, what are those?
Yeah. So, one of the big things that we walked through with Sunshine and Joplin was why, right? Like what was it that didn't work? And then when you look at a Springfield or a Nixa, Republic, Dream Center, what is working? The biggest thing was financial margin. And that's not just how much people are giving. Right. Like that's a big aspect of it, but it's what are we doing with it? Right. Like how are we financially stewarding? And what are we doing as far as setting up campuses? So we set up, I'm not going to get into it, but we set up a tier system to make campuses self-sustainable and then have a plan. Shocker. So we have a plan and intentionality to make sure that the campus is going to take care of the campus and then also be able to push back into what we call a central fund, which then looks at expansion and looks at development for other places. So that's a big one. Financial margin is a big one. It's the same thing with your house, right? Same thing with your family. Financial margin, you're able to go on vacation most of the time because of financial margin. Right. And I'm not saying a campus is a vacation. I'm just saying that you're able to dream. Right. You're able to say yes. You say that a lot. If we have a spot to where we feel like there is a tug and it's like, man, I'm asking you to do this. Like we want to be in a spot where we can say, yeah, okay, let's run, let's get it. So that was a huge one. That's a big one. Another one that we talked about was community within the community, right? So one of the big things that we saw within, I'll use Republic for an example for this. We know through a couple of different maps that we have on engagement through all of our other campuses, where are people coming from? Where are they engaging from? And we saw over 350 people that were engaged in some way in the Republic area. So that might be Billings, that might be Republic, that might be Bodark, that might be that space. 350 in some way is a large number. That's at that time was about 10% of the attendance at the church that doesn't have a campus in that community. Right. So for us to see that, it's a big flag for us to say, yep, that's a green flag. Like let's walk through this because there might be an opportunity for those people to invite people that don't want to go to church. Right. So their whole thing is like, hey, just come with me. Okay, yeah, where is it? It's 34 minutes down the road. Right. Oh, no thanks. Right. Now it's, hey, come with me. Where is it? It's actually 2 minutes down the road. Right. Okay, yeah, I'll go with you. It gives the opportunity for people to bring people along, bring them on the journey and walk through it with them. So we see that a lot in different areas that we're looking at. Bolivar has a large number. I don't know if we do one, right? But there's something there. There's a lot of people that are driving. There's a lot of people on the southeast side.
Stratford.
That still come to a campus. And again, there was one there in the past. So that's a big one as well. And then a leadership pipeline, which you kind of walked through. We've got to develop people well. And that's not just when we're talking about staff and volunteer, we're all a team. Like it doesn't matter if we're staff, we just got to develop people. We got to develop people and making sure that we're not looking at a list of strangers, but we're looking at a list of people that are engaged. So those are the big three things that we really, really focus on right now. And they seem elementary, but the way that we had to walk through it and the way that we had to define it for our culture and for our setting has taken a couple of years. A
couple of things I want to land on is one is as we think of the future of the church, we're hands wide open. I don't know. I mean, I want to be a part of it, right? Like I want this next season of the church to be more effective than any other season, right? And I don't want to be so committed to trying to rebuild the past that we miss the opportunity of the future. So what I would say to North Point, those who are listening or North Pointers, is let's get engaged. It's not so that you can be more moral and fulfill some ritual to be involved and serve and being polite. It's not what it's about. It's about getting engaged and experience the miracle of what it's like to help create an experience for somebody else, whether it's a kid in a room, whether it's opening a door. When we create that experience, we're part of that miracle. And then ask yourself, how can you be part of bringing this outside of the walls and to other people who aren't yet connected? Give in a way where your generosity reflects your priority. Because when you do that, we are so committed to be opportunistic with what God's leading us. And let's just be praying that God opens more opportunities. Second thing and last thing I want to land on is you talked about campus tiers, you talked about heat maps, you talked about Belgium.
Yeah.
I think that you've got a little bit more systems. I know that's what you run, and if you know Justin, he's one of the more brilliant minds around North Point, which I don't know if that's saying a ton. Okay. But I don't know if that's about you or about North Point, but Justin's one of my most brilliant minds that you've been giving this to the organization. And all that to say is I think you know what Freud and psychology are all about. So, hey, thanks for joining us on this podcast. Let's keep dreaming. It's not just the 4 campuses. It is what is God doing next, and how can we be a part of that? So, let's keep being North Point, not only as we gather on the weekends, but even more importantly, when we scatter during the weekdays.
That's awesome. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. Submit a question for the podcast at northpointchurch.tv/podcast. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.